What'd you think of the book, John?
Well, let me jump on the shock part because
The shock part,
because like you said, what might shock some people, what might surprise some people is that you still are available for private parties and
That's
events as a psychic entertainer.
Right.
And I think that's doubly shocking, not only because you're a skeptic writing a book saying blatantly, hey, it's probably just a big con,
Right.
but also because I know you, I've hung out with you, and anybody who does know you and hangs out with you, we know that when it comes to psychics, you're the harshest guy in the room.
Right.
You're the mean one.
Right.
You're the one that we're like, calm down, Mark. Let's just let them have their say. And you're like, fuck them. Why do they need their say?
I don't give them any quarter.
Yeah. So it's like it's doubly shocking to find out you still do the entertainment route of psychicism.
Well, it's a mild schizophrenia. I've learned.
do you? I want to ask you a point-blank question.
Sure.
I'm asking this question because so far, having read 3/4 of the book, so far I'm still not convinced that you're not convinced that some people might have psychic powers. Do you think it's possible that someone has psychic powers? What's your position on that?
I don't think anything is impossible, just less likely. So, I've spent my life trying to find that very thing, but I really don't think we're going to find it unless science finds it. I don't think there's anybody we can call a real psychic. I think that's an oxymoron.
Well, let's talk about...
The reason why I took a sympathetic tone, if you want to call it that, in a book, is because I did not want to write just a debunking book. I wanted to write something to try and reach as many people as possible. My goal has always been to reach the biggest audience I could reach. And I knew that if I just wrote something that said, no, 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 bad, 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 that there's a huge audience, a crossover audience out there that needs to have some sympathy. So I injected a tone of like, well, maybe, or this surprised me, or this was an experience I experienced, to draw those people in. I didn't want to make it just a black and white statement. There's a huge audience out there that wants to read a book. They don't want to read a skeptic book. They want to read a book they can sit by the pool and read and go, oh, some thought here. So
how is that not, and this isn't going to feel good.
I'm open, go ahead.
How is that not, A, heavily cynical, and B, really disrespectful to the minds of people? I mean,
because I'm respecting them by including them.
Listen, when you say maybe in your book, and do we all know what I mean when I say when you say maybe?
Well, no, I disagree. I didn't say maybe. What I said is, because the whole thing is my adventures in the world of the psychic. So when I was in the world of the psychic, I kept my eyes open during that time, okay? So, and the people that I met and the people that I worked with, maybe there was a part of me that wanted to believe. I think that's a common thread.
Yeah, to me it's obvious that there's a part of you.
But it's
what makes me, and I think many readers probably, kind of connect with you and have some sympathy for what you're going through.
Well, then that's what you just answered your own question.
No, I didn't completely. Here's my problem. My problem is, as I read the book, and I sympathize with anybody who's found them. Listen, I sympathize with priests who have lost their faith and don't have an option. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. I sympathize deeply with the people in that equation, and the guy in the book, and the other people that you're talking about. It's obvious that many of those people and yourself were kind of locked into this way of life, and while the book didn't seem to be an unfolding of your eyes opening to the scam that is 900 psychics,
right?
900 line psychics. It definitely had a mild air of you wanting to expose the scam that is that.
Right.
I like that. I liked it a lot, and I don't want ever to take that away from what you did in that. That said, when I say it's there are passages in the book where you actually suggest that there might have been something magical happening here, rather than what we in the skeptic world almost always would see as coincidence.
But it's not a skeptic book. This is not Prometheus.
And
this is the whole point.
And I will not necessarily correct either of you, but I will say what is going on a little bit, because I know, Mark, you have a great fear of being misunderstood. So I took a fine-tooth comb to this book.
Well, it doesn't bother me if people misunderstand. In fact, I want people to interpret it as many ways as there are to be interpreted. And there's no hard and fast thing here. I mean, you guys are trying to compress it into a one-statement box.
See, and that's what I saw in the book. I saw that you said, okay, I'm going to take this term psychic, and I'm going to give it a lackadaisical, I guess, definition. And then if I use it again a couple times in the book, like, hey, that felt like a quote-unquote psychic wink-wink moment,
Yeah.
then, it's like, it feels like a magic trick. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to call this napkin, a divine cloth, and now I'm going to do a cool trick with it.
Right.
Hey, wasn't that divinity? And so,
Back
like,
and forth.
yeah, so it feels like a trick,
Yeah. Well, it is a trick. I'm a magician.
I know.
I try and draw
So-
people in. I try and get them to experience wonderment. That's what I do.
So I'm
That's what
saying,
a mentalist
when
does.
Emery, sometimes when you see that he's being open to the psychic thing, I read that, and I remember a few of the lax definitions he's given for the psychic thing,
Right.
and I'm like, no, he's not opening it up for psychic. He just wants to be able to say that, to be able to say that phrase, to be able to say that, hey, maybe there is a psychic thing without actually saying it.
Well, I feel like what you're doing, Mark, is I feel like you're just kind of cashing in on, attempting to cash in
Can I
on,
interrupt?
What?
For a person who doesn't even know what your book's about,
Yeah.
why don't you tell me, because I haven't
Oh.
read it.
there you go.
Oh, summarize it for
Yeah,
you.
summarize the book.
Psychic Blues is a narrative novel written. It's all true. Only a few of the names have been changed to protect the not so innocent. So it's my adventures
You say Nazis for
Yeah.
some reason.
infiltrating and getting inside the psychic business. There's no metaphysical, spiritual aspect to it. It's cynical in that way. So I was trying to scam the scammers, because when I originally got into it, I've always been a skeptic, and I've never been a believer. Okay, maybe when Uri Geller first came around in the 70s, and I was a magician performing, I started to think, wow, he's bending silverware. That's pretty interesting. So there was a question in my mind, but then I started to see other mentalists and really look at them, and I realized they were just doing magic. So to answer your question, it's my adventures trying to go to the very top of the psychic world, taking a look around, and then with the goal of writing the book. So cashing in? Hell yes. Why the fuck not?
Well,
Why shouldn't I cash in?
my answer.
My idea is to cash in and spread the word, just like Lamar Keene did with psychic
Now,
marketing.
wait a minute. Let me stop you right here. Let me just respond to what you're saying, because you're responding. Listen, when I say cash in,
Yeah.
I mean there are people who are going to read your book and be left with the idea, I think,
Yeah.
that there are real psychics out there. I think that your book was written in a very, very
I can't change that. You know that. One book is not going to change all the people who believe in psychics.
see, and that's my complaint, Mark.
Well,
There's my complaint.
Yeah.
My complaint is that
I didn't go far enough.
no, it's not that you didn't go far enough. It's that you're a skeptic, my friend, and
Yeah.
you know that psychics are scammers.
Right.
You know this. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's what the book is about.
Okay. And what you've done in some parts of your book is you've allowed people, and you've actually manipulated
Be
the
specific,
idea.
like when.
You know, that's what I hate.
See,
about it.
this is when people say things like that, you got to back it up, because you might have taken it out of context. I know that
Well-
John has some notes here.
John
Let
does.
me say that I do not think that most people will walk away from this book thinking, oh, maybe there is psychics out there. I think it is a very, I think it's a very skeptical look at the psychic phenomenon. What I don't think the book is very skeptical about is the participation in the psychic phenomenon. Now, what I mean by that is I think it's very skeptical about the existence of actual psychics. I don't think it's all that skeptical about, hey, if you're just an entertainer and people happen to think you're psychic, as long as you're not pretending to talk to their dead grandmother,
Right.
it's okay. And I'm not sure if it is. Actually, I'm positive.
Okay, let me throw this out. A psychic entertainer, if an agent hires you to play the part of a pirate, you play the part of a pirate. So if an agent hires me to do a seance, and I do a seance, and it's believable, what's the problem?
The problem is my mom fucking calls me and she believes there's an afterlife because
she might believe in pirates or leprechauns are going to find
that's
gold.
not that's a completely that's a false.
I want you just to describe to me the difference between being hired to play a part in a play or a movie,
Yeah.
and doing a seance where people have come to understand. They've come to the private party. They understand that you are the psychic in the room who's going to do tarot card readings.
What's the difference?
Yeah, that's my question to you. Do you?
Well, again, I think it's venue by venue. Sometimes I will actually, like if it's a skeptical venue,
Yeah.
you know, then people know. If I sit down, if somebody hires me to do a party in character, and also when I do readings, if you read the book, you'll know that what I try and do is inject skepticism. You've heard me do readings. I inject skepticism. I actually self-deprecate a lot of times in my readings. So it basically comes down to two people having a conversation. I'm giving them some advice, but every once in a while I'll say something like, you know, these tarot cards, they're just pieces of printed paper. Or I'll give it that.
And
that
in the
tone.
CFI, in the building of the CFI, at the Magic Castle,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally understandable,
But
and you don't have to
I
give.
do that all the time.
And, well, I'm saying you don't have to give a disclaimer or anything like that. In fact, you, as far as I'm concerned, you could play completely straight at the Magic Castle and say, "I'm the real deal."
Right.
But people know they're in the Magic Castle.
It doesn't matter though. The same people he's talking about, that Emery's talking about, will come up to me after I've done my half-hour show in the parlor of the Magic Castle, and they'll say, "How did you develop your powers?" The point is, this is the line you walk when you're a man of mystery. You have to have that. You have to have.
No, you don't.
Sure, you do.
Penn and Teller don't have it. And
I'm
numerous
not
other
trying to
acts.
compete with Penn and Teller.
It's not about competition. It's about honesty. It's
No.
about being part of a community, and you aren't. You have your foot in one community and the other, and your
Not
balls are hanging between them.
No,
That's what I think.
this book that I wrote is my disclaimer.
I don't see it as a disclaimer.
I see it. I could actually see it kind of as a disclaimer, but here's the thing. And I think it's one of those things where if you want to hide a magic trick, if you want to hide a turn of
in plain sight or in a book.
in a book, yeah, put it in a book. I don't think anybody who's going to be sitting down getting a tarot card reading at their rich friend's private party
Right.
will know about it. And that's not even to say that your book won't
That's
become popular,
first of all,
even if it was a bestseller.
If somebody hires me at their rich friend's party, it's not my job to educate them skeptics.
I know.
It's just not my
I get that,
job.
and I'll even go probably a little further than you, Emery, in saying that I don't necessarily have a huge problem with you doing those psychic things at private parties that you can
Let's
hire
put it
to,
this
but
way.
I'm
The
like,
rich person, is there to entertain their guests.
yeah,
Penn and Teller didn't hire me. Okay? So, I mean, I'm free to do whatever. This is a free country.
yes,
I don't wanna
yes.
sound
And
offensive, but you know
that's
I
what
mean?
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I will go even further than Emery in saying that I don't have beef with you doing that.
Yeah.
My only issue is that you do that, but you think that somehow that's okay. There
Yeah.
are jobs that I've taken that are not okay, and I freely admit that. Like I actually do a chiropractic video series for a school I will not name,
Right.
and I don't think, and I realize that I'm bending some principles here and there
Right.
to work for them, to help support them, to
Yes.
give them the best
Well,
performance
here's
I can.
the thing you guys don't understand. I actually like doing readings.
And that's why I'm
Sorry.
No, and that's my thing too. Is that
I
hey,
like
I'm
it.
an actor. I love acting. I love doing these video
It's not
series
an
or whatever
act.
for them. But
It's not an act.
But what I'm saying,
No.
what I'm saying is that when I come back, I realize that I was slightly bending my principles in order to do my art. And the added bonus is that hey, I can come to my skeptical buddies and give them a little insight into the world of chiropractic That doesn't make me a secret agent. That doesn't mean I infiltrated the chiropractic network. That just means I sold myself out a little to perform my art.
Right.
And that's, I guess, my only issue is that, do you admit to selling out a little?
No, I don't feel that way. Because when people get up from the table, from having a reading or whatever it is, whether I'm looking at the lines in their hands or the tarot cards, or they just want to ask me a question, they're smiling.
That doesn't make it okay.
No, it doesn't, Mark. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show.
That's why it's entertainment.
It's not entertainment to most people. No, it's not. It's not entertainment to most people. Most people.
You can argue that, but
most
take a look
people.
at the rest of the world.
No. That's packaging. What you're
out.
doing is packaging, Mark. And I'm calling you out on it on that level. Okay.
That's fine. No, you can call me out.
When you call it entertainment, for example, the 900 lines, you're only when you say it's entertainment.
That's over.
And you and no.
Over.
When you
it
say
was
it's
over like 15 years.
You said they're still doing it.
They're still doing it. I don't.
No. But I'm saying when someone says this is for, the fact. Listen, I have trouble with that, Mark.
That's fine.
I don't understand how you can package it that way. Because
It's very easy. You go into it. You go into something. You say, I want to learn as much as I can about this. It's just like somebody who, if I went into a nuclear power plant and wanted to find out, where they're making mistakes there, and I went in there and I found out about it and I wrote about it and I blew the whistle on it.
Yeah.
I don't understand where the problem is.
I don't buy it. I really don't. I don't feel like that's.
I'm not
that's
selling
honest.
it to you. I'm selling it to the person that walks by Hudson Books on the way to get onto an airplane to
Right.
go somewhere and sees Psychic Blues in the window and says, wow, I understand this book tells me some things about the psychic world, because there are a lot of people who know a lot less than the people in this room about psychic things. Believe me.
Right.
So if it's an entrance, a gateway into the world of skeptical thinking, then that's the best I can do.
And
But I don't want to make it like I'm another James Randi, I'm another Penn and Teller, because they put people off.
And I think
They're
your
too
book,
acerbic.
I think your book is important in that respect. And I think there's a lot of skeptics out there who
That's
will.
cashing in. Hey, that's cashing in.
I think there's a lot of skeptics out there who will want to dismiss your book because he still does psychic readings.
Well,
for
and he's been very clear. It's not the psychic community that he wrote the book for, which I get that. I understand what you're saying.
No, they're not. They're going to go ahead and believe whatever they want to believe, no matter what I say about it. And in fact, one of the things I just saw, which is wonderful, on the internet is somebody just wrote something. It's a group of psychics. Mark Edward is scum.
What?
Oh.
Yes. So I have finally ascended to the level of being scum. No, to me, that tells me I'm doing something right. Okay?
What's the context of this? What were they talking about?
Because they completely disregarded in other words, the context was me saying that psychics and mediums are full of shit. And they said, how can he say this? And they completely missed, like one of the things was, I talk about pre-show in my book, which is where you get information about somebody before the show and you use it. So the woman who, I don't know if she was a woman, whoever wrote the article says, I never get information about people before I give them a reading. Well, it's a totally different thing.
Right.
If somebody's at a party and they say, oh, we have a tarot reader over in the corner, be sure to get your fortune told. Of course I'm not getting information on that person beforehand.
Right.
So the point is, they are coming from a totally different place. They want to call me scum. Do it. That's just exactly. I mean, I wouldn't say I want that to happen, but I take it as a badge of honor because I'm getting under their skin and I'm getting them to think. That person might say, I see what he's saying. He's talking about a big group where you do the law of large numbers and you throw something out in an audience and the medium pretends to collect information that way. It doesn't have anything to do with a one-on-one palm reading. That's carnival stuff. It's hokey, I mean, you guys are assuming that somebody goes to a rich person's party, sits down and has a palm reading, and then goes away and their whole life is changed.
I'm not
These
saying.
people have already made it. They don't need to ask me anything. They're looking at me.
No one's saying
I'm
that.
like, I'm
No
like,
one's saying
I'm like
that. No
a
one's
parsley,
saying their whole life
parsley
has
on the
changed.
plate of their rack of lamb. I'm like that little sprig of parsley.
But this-
a fortune teller.
Anybody who's doing fortune telling, psychic readings, and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
that isn't explaining that what they're doing is just purely trickery. Anyone
they
who's
can be
doing
deluded too. frankly.
right, well, but anyone who knows they're doing it, for example, and those out there who are just doing it who are self-deluded,
Yeah.
they're harming society, in my opinion. That's why I'm a skeptic, Mark. I'm a skeptic because I think that we need to stand up. We need to get nose to nose with people
Write a
who are
book.
bringing harm to our.
Write a book
I'm-
about it. And see how many people you're going to get to with that attitude.
Actually, millions are reached by showing them the truth. John, Mark,
This is the truth. What I'm telling you is the truth. I'm not hiding any. There's no occult factor here.
well, let's talk. I want to talk about one aspect of
There's no. I'm not trying to guide this into a dark region here. It's all out on the table.
No, we know. See, and there's kind of the trick. We know what you're not doing. We're very clear about what you're not doing, but we don't think that makes it okay to do what you do sometimes.
You said
Huh.
it.
Like
Sometimes.
yeah, like
Okay,
sometimes you do
tell me
psychic
when
entertainment.
it's okay for me to
Sometimes
talk to people.
you do psychic entertainment.
Let me give you an example. This is in the book. If I'm standing in the supermarket checkout line and I look at the woman standing next to me, and I start to tell her about impressions that I'm getting about her, based on what I see, what I feel like saying to her, very uncomfortable, and it's invasive for that person, and they're going to be like, it's intrusive. That's the word. They're going to be like, security, get this guy out of here. But if I'm at a, quote, rich person's party, and there's a little sign that says tarot readings, that same person will stand in line for an hour just to ask me a question. So, is that my fault? Or is that society's fault? Or
Yeah,
what
it's
is
your
going
fault.
on there?
It's your fault because you hung the sign up.
And here's what
The less people who
party
are
planner.
selling snake oil out of the back of
It's
a
not
trailer,
snake oil.
the less people
Oh,
who are buying the snake oil.
You've got this whole thing in your head that two people communicating with each other and talking about their problems is snake oil.
See,
And I-
that's,
You need
Yes.
to lose that.
Yes,
you
it
need
is.
to lose that. 'cause
yes,
that's
it
what-
is.
No, it isn't.
Chiropractors
No,
are
it isn't.
fucking.
I'm not a chiropractor.
Chiropractors
No, you
are,
know,
are,
you're
are,
mixed.
are performing.
I'm not talking about chiropractors. I'm talking about a person
Mark,
who understands people's
Mark, I
problems.
was using an analogy.
It doesn't work.
It sure does.
It's
Jen
not a
has
science.
point to make.
Jen, go ahead.
If the person walks away from the tarot reading thinking that something psychic actually did happen.
Yeah.
That's where the problem is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if
But it's a problem for you.
it's a problem for
You don't have a problem with that, Mark?
if you are propagating.
I don't
that,
I don't present it that way.
But when it's perceived that way and you don't correct it, you think that's okay?
Yeah, allow me to interject with
No,
a-
I want Mark to
I
answer that.
I don't know, because if I do a really good mentalist performance,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people walk away thinking it's real,
Yeah.
is that wrong?
I think you're deluding yourself, Mark.
No, I'm not.
I know you don't think that, or you wouldn't be deluding yourself. I think you're deluding
That's a
yourself.
judgment on your part.
Absolutely.
The audience that I see at the Magic Castle, they're entertained by that, and they may go away, and I actually want, the Pendulum has this whole thing, if they drive home from our show and they think that anything real happened, then we've got a problem.
Well,
I
was
actually want
confused.
people to drive home and think about it.
I was confused
That's
because
why I'm a skeptic.
we were at a skeptic event and I saw you do your performance and it was mentalism.
Which one was that now?
300th episode of Brian Dunning's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw you do your mentalism, and I was really excited to find out how, it was a trick. But there was no reveal or anything, and I was confused because I was
I'm
like,
sorry.
I mean, I know we're all skeptics, but maybe there's someone there who's not, or,
Exactly.
And I actually, like I said,
But I didn't get it. I thought that you were, going to show everyone that it was
Oh, no.
just a trick.
I mean, put me on the
It's
record.
not
I
my
don't have a
job
problem
to
with that.
educate you.
John has no problem.
If you
I
want
have
to
no
find out
problem
about
with
it, you can go to the library, you can go to the magic store, you can do the research to find out what's going on.
What do you think about
Because I'm
power
a
banks, Mark?
skeptic.
What do you think about power banks?
It's a piece of plastic.
And what do you think about people selling them to other people?
It's wrong.
It's wrong? How come?
because it's a piece of plastic. There's no wonderment. It's not an entertainment vehicle. Come on. Again, you're mixing apples.
So the
and oranges.
entertainment. If there's entertainment in it,
Yes.
you think it's okay to delude and fool people in that way?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I got you.
I mean, what have you been for the last 500 years?
I'm a
People-
48-year-old
people-
stand-up comic performer.
People go into an audience situation expecting wonderment from what I do. They don't expect me to educate them and go, this is what I really do.
I did
Now,
because you were
wait a second, if I'm at Dragon Con and it's Skeptic Track, if anybody saw what I did my whole show totally in character.
Yeah.
And I had people just, their jaws were dropped, and then at the end I said, you don't really think I talk to dead people?
Right.
And then I said, no, of course not. I planned this with this person and that person, and I revealed the whole thing.
Okay,
And you
Mark.
can hear the aha moment. People exhaled their ignorance. That's a skeptic track.
And I'm not asking for a reveal every time you do a mentalist act or a magic trick. I mean, Jamie Swiss isn't going to reveal how he does his card tricks. You know, that's, you
And
know.
somebody might think he's in league with Satan too. I can't be responsible.
And I get that,
for
and I get that if you're doing mentalism or magic, it's when it's in the realm, it's when it's under the title of something that a lot of people assume is real. Now, you can't help who believes your mentalist act at the
That's
Magic
right.
Castle.
No.
That, I don't think
can't
it's
help
on the
it anywhere,
responsibility
really.
of the
I really
artist.
can't help
I
it.
really don't. I disagree
It's not
with
my,
Penn
it's
Teller
not
on
my
that.
job to educate
Yeah,
them. I can't.
But my only issue, I guess,
In fact, if I did that, I would piss off a lot of mentalists and magicians. I already do that. In fact, my career is basically my magic career is basically almost ruined because I did reveals on NBC television. So, I mean, I've already paid my dues as far as what you guys are talking
What'd
about.
you
I've
reveal?
already been there.
What'd you
I've
reveal?
already been there.
What's your review?
I revealed how I predicted the future. And I revealed the guy who invented it laughs every time I talk to him about it. But the magicians took that as a personal affront. How could you? How could you do that? So I was like banned I had a tour in England and Scotland. It was banned. I was banned by the Magic Circle in England because I did a show about exposing psychics and mediums. And I actually tried to make an agreement with the producer. I said, look, I will do this prediction. And I knew it was coming. I said, I'll do it, but I don't want you to show me revealing it. You can show someone else and you can say, one of the ways Mark Edward might have done this, take a little of the heat off of it.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. They just zoomed right in on my hand, showed me doing the slide. As soon as that commercial break came that night on NBC, my phone started ringing. It has not stopped. That was almost 11 years ago. So I have already paid.
So the producers did
talking
that to you.
about.
You didn't even choose to do it.
No, I made a verbal agreement. One of the stupidest things in Hollywood
Right.
you ever do. I made a verbal agreement with the producer, and he said no problem. And they actually shot another person's hands. I watched them do it, doing this secret move. And yet, when the show was aired, they put a bubble on it, zoomed in. It basically killed my career.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Really? Because I mean, I know even like Penn and Teller have come out and be like, yeah, by the way, we're not actually the bad boys of magic. Nobody's actually pissed off at us revealing
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I've been pilloried for years. In fact, I still get hate mail. I can tell you about a website you can go to right now, and you can see the whole thing. And what it is, and here's what it is.
What's the website? Listeners are going to want
It's
to
called, Dragon Skull. You go to
Okay.
Dragon Skull UK, look up Mark Edward, and look at the flaming that I took. And it's still there. No one's ever taken it down, and I still get hate mail from England about that. Now, here's the thing. The rest of the show, I still stand by. Because the rest of the show was me showing how I did pre-show, how mediums get information before the show. That was really good. I really liked that. But what happened is this one thing through the whole.
Where you give up a cool magic trick.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and so I get that from the magician's perspective. I want to give I guess a big backhanded compliment about your book, which is that your book does have a fantastic lesson to teach that I think somehow you miss out on. And the lesson is this. The lesson is that I think your book teaches the lesson that we should all talk to each other and listen to each other much more openly and honestly in life than we do.
Right.
And I think you agree with that.
Yeah.
But then I think you go further and say that because we're not right now necessarily listening to each other openly and honestly, it's okay to trick somebody into listening and talking to me openly and honestly.
I never said it was okay. All I said was that we have reached the point where it's like this. It's like the tarot pack acts as a passport for me to say something to somebody, to say whatever I feel like, whether they want to hear it or not. It's like having this passport in your hand.
Yeah,
that's not right.
But you talk
That's
about
what I don't like.
But you talk about the great consequences of doing your reading. People walk away smiling. You saved somebody's life.
That's right.
And none of that is okay. Like it's consequential.
Why is that not okay?
Because
Hold on,
let's
we're
say
picking on Mark after
No.
Sir,
Why is
hold on.
it not okay
Mark,
to say
Mark,
somebody's
Mark,
life?
I got it, Mark. I got to do a break,
Okay.
and we'll fight in a minute. You're listening to Skeptically Yours on skepticallyyours.net and available on the iTunes Store. Good news, everybody! We have a premium service. We do the show for 90 minutes, and you'll be able to listen to the live show and or download the first hour free from iTunes, as is always the case. The premium service will allow you to subscribe to the full 90-minute show. It's only $10 per year. If you want to support us, please go to skepticallyyours.net premium and subscribe. But now back to Skeptically Yours, where thinking is free. We're talking with Mark Edward, John Rael, and Jen Brown. Again, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you want to know why it's not okay to say that you saved somebody's life by doing a psychic reading. Let me give an extreme.
Wait, you're speaking out of context. Do you understand the irony of what happened in that one situation that's in the book? There's only one person's life that I saved.
Yeah. But
Do you understand the irony of what happened in that situation?
Tell the story, Mark.
Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah,
Because it's really cool. Like, I didn't want to give any spoilers.
No,
That's my
all right,
favorite chapter,
because-
actually.
Well, it's a thread that sort of runs through that first part of the book.
Yeah.
Okay, what happened was, when I was working on the 900 line, it was extremely long hours, and I was just finishing about a 9-hour shift that ran from about 11 p.m. to about 7:30 in the morning. And when you do that, you do get maybe probably 50, 60 readings, maybe even a few more. So I was at literally the end of my shift, the end of my row, where I was completely exhausted. I really wanted to get outside and take a walk and forget about the whole entire evening that I had spent on the telephone.
And his dog was harassing him.
And the dog really wanted to go out. He was pacing back and forth. Come on, let's go, let's go. So I was ready to go. Phone rang. Now, in the beginning of that chapter, without going too much detail, there's a woman who's very, very unhappy with her life, and she doesn't know what to do. And she, just out of desperation, she picks up the telephone and calls. She sees an infomercial, and she calls the 900 line. So now we fast forward. So it's the last call of the day. I hear the phone ring. I'm on my way out the door, but I say, you know what? I'll take one more. So I get on the phone, and I'm like, oh man, I'm so tired. My voice is shot. So I just gave a very general reading, just to blow this person off and to get out the door, right? Just like, oh man, this is what you need. This is what I see happening with you, blah, 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 blah. Thank you, goodbye. Okay, so now, about 6 months later, I get a phone call from the person who runs the company telling me, do you remember this person? I thought I was in trouble. I thought I might have done something wrong. Turns out that woman, that call, she had a gun to her head and she was going to kill herself. But because of what I told her about that I saw her doing something else, she changed her mind, and now she's in nursing school and her whole life is turned around, and she had written a testimonial letter that they wanted to send to me. So the irony is that no matter how hard I try to really make a difference with people, it's the one-off thing that really didn't register with me at all. So that's saying there's nothing psychic about it.
Well, but
People
in the
need
book
someone
you do
to
say
talk
that
to.
you saved your life and you have an awesome responsibility.
I realized when I walked out the door that morning that, yeah, I never realized until that point what an awesome responsibility it is to talk to somebody on the telephone when you can't even see what's going on.
Yep, but you...
So it's not psychic.
Yes, but I'm saying you, in a sense, take credit for this woman still being alive, and I don't think you can.
Well,
It's consequentialism, Mark. It's like, okay, here's a hypothetical.
no,
If I broke
I see
into a
what you
house,
mean.
like if I broke into a house to steal people's shit,
it's more
I
irony
see the
than
home.
consequential.
But
That's
I
the
see.
point I was trying to make.
But I'm saying, if I break into somebody's house to steal their shit, I see the homeowner lying on the floor with blood coming out of their head. I
Yeah.
call the paramedics, and they get saved.
Right.
That doesn't make me a superhero. That
Right.
doesn't mean I saved their
Right,
life.
but that's the surface part of it. The subtext is I didn't know anything.
Yeah, I mean, the subtext is that, hey, it's all a non sequitur big crapshoot, and I think that's the lesson you should take away much more than people feel better, positive changes happen
Right.
because of my readings. It's like,
When I read that part, I had the same reaction you're had. I was going, it doesn't make, there's no logic behind suggesting that psychics, have a responsibility of any kind.
Well, I'm not talking. I
Let me
wasn't
finish
talking.
my
I was
thought.
talking about me.
Let me finish my thought. Okay. When reading that book and you're going through the processes, you're definitely, as a reader, at least for me, I can only speak about what I experienced.
Right.
You're definitely equating and I'm building a sense of empathy toward the people who are at the other end of these lines, just trying to pay their fucking bills,
Right.
and talk to people 24 hours a day.
Right.
And it sounds like a hell gig. It sounds like it's making really rich people richer and
Right.
and letting you pay your bills and not making you wealthy.
Right.
There's so much awful about it from even that perspective that you find yourself almost. I'm a skeptic.
Right.
Skeptic, and I'm feeling all of a sudden like I'm suffering from what's the syndrome? Stockholm syndrome.
Right.
Fuck you.
Then I've written.
No, you've written an awful book, in my opinion, based on that aspect.
The whole point is to try and get you to think. I'm not aiming it at skeptics. I'm trying to get people to think about what that's about. That's empathy. That's what you should be.
well, I'd say one of the greatest
Stop
virtues of
denying
this
it,
book.
you know?
Yeah,
I think one of the greatest virtues of this book is that by the end of it, I had gained so much empathy for people peddling woo.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is a bad thing, especially considering how harsh us
My
skeptics
skeptical,
get.
my skeptic road it's taken me a while to turn down that pathway that makes you understand. First of all, and this is how Jamie Ian Swiss on the show made me really understand the importance of knowing, as a skeptic, that not everybody understands who's doing woo, that they're doing bad. Not everybody thinks that they're lying. The guy who does the test with the arms in the mall and says, buy the rubber band to put on your wrist,
Right.
and this will help
you're
your balance.
conflating a whole
That
lot of
guy
things.
doesn't. No, I'm not.
Yes,
I'm
you
talking,
are.
no, I'm not. I'm only talking about my
No,
skeptical process, Mark.
I will explain. But your skeptical process, you're lumping everything together. If somebody doesn't have common sense, and you direct them to common sense, like you'll in the book I have 800 numbers, a lot of them. And people would call, and there's one part where the woman had her eye gouged out,
Right.
and I said, you need to call a woman's shelter. Let me give you a number. And she says, what's a woman's shelter?
Wow.
So, I mean, there are incidents where there are people who don't have any other way to get help.
That doesn't make it okay.
But they're not buying a power bracelet.
But see, that doesn't mean you help them. That just means you're not a complete jerk. You're not a total
Right.
scumbag. That's all
Right.
it means.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
The criminal who,
Like you just said, not all people who think they are psychic are absolute charlatans. They may be deluded into thinking.
Oh, I
that
think they're
they've got-
charlatans.
that They've got
Don't get me
angel
wrong.
power or whatever.
No,
But
don't
they
misquote me.
may not know it.
I think they're charlatans.
Yeah.
I just don't think they realize that they're charlatans, and there's a big difference between those two sentences.
Right, but it's a pretty big area to stand in judgment of. There's a spectrum there. Like I tell people, probably 85 to 90% of the people out there are absolute charlatans who know they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
The 10%, there's a little spectrum in there. Most of them are deluded. Most of them But there might be somebody who's just a compassionate person who's drawn into that. They've got crystals. They've got blah blah. It doesn't matter. The point is, they think they're doing good. They don't care what you think. They think they're a shaman.
And I don't think they're doing good.
Well, but
I
how
think
can
they're
you
harming more
choose
than
that?
they're helping.
Here's how I judge them, and let me use
You would
another.
judge Carlos Castaneda that way?
Let me tell you how I judge them, and let me use
How
another.
dare you?
Well,
Another-
that's what we all do. That's what we all do. In fact,
I know, but
all you're doing is what you're accusing me of doing in this moment. You're judging me now.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
I'm
you
just-
are. You said, "How dare
I'm
you?"
saying in the grand scope of things, you can't just make a black and white choice unless you see absolute fraud going on.
Let
Yes,
me
you
tell
can.
you. Let me tell you how I judge them, and this reminds me of a few friends I have out there who are life coaches, also known as being unemployed.
That's the
And-
new
Yeah.
term for psychics. By
Yeah.
life coaches.
Yeah, and my problem with them is because from one perspective, okay, they're just talking and listening to people, they're giving them what they think is the best advice they can give them, and this is a serious need that all these people out there have, so what's wrong? What's wrong is they are not licensed, they are not experts, they are not a doctor, they are not a psychiatrist, they're not even an on-call EMT at a Guns N' Roses concert. They are a regular person who's fucking with lives. And it's not just
Right.
unethical, it's dangerous,
That's
Mark.
right.
This is
You don't have to
dangerous.
tell me that. I know that.
To a certain extent, it's
But
just like
why?
they're taking away people's decision-making power for themselves, like putting their own, life path in their hands. If they have to go to somebody else to decide what to do for them, it's like you're kind of cutting.
Yeah, and it's no
Oh, yeah,
longer open and
So if
honest.
somebody's boyfriend gouges their eye out, she doesn't know what a woman's shelter is, and I guide her to a woman's shelter, that's messing up their life.
That's you not being a jerk. That's all that is.
That's even.
Well, there's
okay,
a jerk
so-
aspect to it. It costs
That's
us
what
fucking
the-
90 cents a minute to get that information.
That's what the psychic blues part of it is.
Yeah, and I
That's
get
what the book is about.
And I
what
get
we're
that.
talking about.
and I get that, and I think that's when your book soars the most, is when it is the blues. But at times it becomes self-justifying and aggrandizing, and I think that's where the
I
mistakes are.
have a tremendous ego. What can I say?
I know.
I want to know how you
I
do
know.
those tricks. I want to know how you do
I
those
know.
tricks.
In fact,
Yeah.
I think another
I can
part,
tell you how he does it.
another part that really stuck in my side because I saw, Hot and Kettle, is when you worked with that DJ, Ed, and he
Oh,
was
yeah, that-
and he was being aggressive to you, and he was like, "Why are we these fucking psychics here? I think what you're doing is unethical."
Yeah.
He would always read the station disclaimer,
That's
and
right.
you're like, "Man, Ed is just." And in the book, like outside of quotes, you're like, "Man, Ed was just so short-sighted.
Yeah.
Ed just couldn't,
He couldn't go with the entertainment.
You would be
value.
telling if you were forced to work with somebody who claimed they were psychic, you would be worse than Ed. I would be worse than Ed. I would be, like the choice phrases I would use at somebody I was forced to work with who thought they were or was pretending they were psychic.
Right.
That would blow my mind. Now, in the moment, back then, I can understand why you were, being sly and defensive. Like that's
Yeah.
your job. You're trying to maintain a livelihood. I get it. But now, years later, give Ed some credit for being a skeptic who was a little pissed off.
Yeah, but the problem is Ed. It wasn't just me that Ed was causing the problem.
All the psychics.
No, the whole concept of having a call-in psychic show.
Yeah, I would too. I would have a huge problem with that.
How do you feel about psychics who truly believe that they're psychic doing it? Like, there's that reality show that
The Shut Eyes.
No, the Gypsy reality show.
I know that's not the name of the show.
Right.
And they're in New York, and the woman, the matriarch, is like, all the girls have the gift. We're all
Right.
psychic.
Right.
I mean, it seems like she really believes
Right.
the things she does is real.
How do I feel about
like, what
them
What
in
about
particular?
them? Yeah.
It's hard to say because it's a cultural thing, and it's also a lot of. I mean, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but a lot of the people who I've met that are so-called gypsies, that's a way of life for them. So I don't think they're necessarily being defensive or they're trying to put one over.
They really, really, truly think that they're helping people.
I don't think that either because
But let's say that
I know that there's a whole culture that's based on lies.
Yeah.
It's based on lies. So, and the more the more you believe in it, the more testimonial letters you get, the more people you so-called help, the more you start to believe it. So
Sylvia Brown
that's-
believes her shit.
No,
She doesn't, right?
no, I don't
She
think
couldn't
so.
at this point. I mean,
No.
she's been
No,
around.
She's.
And who's the one we were talking about before the show that you had mentioned?
John.
Jan Edward?
Oh, no,
the
the lady.
Love Evans?
The
Oh,
woman.
the long-armed
Oh,
psychic,
yeah.
Teresa Caputo.
Isn't
Right.
that many
Why does
commercials
she
for
believes
like?
that she's
Yeah, what
real?
do you think of her?
I think she's like John Edwards. She's really good. She's a fast talker. She knows all the tricks of the trade, but she's total bullshit. All you have to do is listen to her, and if you're trained to hear that sort of dialogue, then you can just see right through it.
Yeah, I went to a psychic. Amanda and I had to go to a psychic for a class that she's going through right now, and I had no doubt that this woman believed her own bullshit. She believed that she was reading demons and finding
So
information.
how can you know for sure?
I told you, I think.
Yeah.
It just said it seemed she's either that good
Yeah.
or she's that bad.
Yeah, see, I think they're either one or the other. You're either a charlatan or you're a deluded. There's no, I mean, that's why I was wondering when I saw what you wrote on the email you sent. You said psychic scammers or real psychics.
Yeah, I was
There's
curious.
no such thing as a real psychic.
Buddy, I want you to know something. When you read your book, there are certain passages,
Yeah.
and well, I don't want to do it on the show. I will email you and
No,
we'll
don't,
look at it.
just let it out.
No,
Come on.
no. There are certain passages where it seems like you're suggesting
Yeah.
there is a magic somewhere there.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, Emery, it's a trick because he redefines the word psychic a few times before the book continues.
Well,
It's a magic trick.
yeah, he's
It's
doing
a bait
more
and
magic.
switch.
I am trying.
Are you meaning
I
to
am
do that, Mark?
Yes, of course.
Why?
Because I
Why?
want to sell books to the people who have a glimmer of hope.
I think
You have no hope.
I
You're
think you
bereft
might-
of any magic in
I
your
think
life.
you might be shooting yourself in the foot there.
And
I
I'm
think
not
you might be
bereft of
trying
any
to-
magic, by the way.
No, but I'm just saying, the
I'm
point
not.
is that why would you suggest that there's a magical part of the universe out there?
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
We're
Say it
talking
again.
about specifically psychic ability.
Yeah.
So in that context,
Right.
you've taken me out of context, Mark.
No,
Much
wait.
like you say people
said
do to you.
magic then.
Now, I said you were doing a magic trick.
Yeah, magic trick.
In regards to the use of the word psychic in your book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
What?
think you might be shooting yourself in the foot here. I think you might be
Let's
trying
do
to
it now.
have your cake and eat it too, you know?
Well, how about another book, Mark?
Well, a lot of people, and Randy even said that. And here's something I want everybody to understand too, and this is not trying to backpedal and get defensive, but a lot of the book was edited by the publisher. Okay, there was a lot more to that book that had to do more with my personal things that I was going through while I was going into this world. But the editor felt that I was going off on tangents that people really didn't want to hear about. They said, we want you to just stay focused on just the business of the psychic thing. So, as Randy said, there's enough for a whole other book there. And there is. And it would probably be more about the personal stuff that I went through, my tinges of conscience, my should I really be doing this, et cetera, et cetera. How could I do this for 20 years and then just write the book now? The kind of stuff we're talking about. So there is room for that, but not in this book. This book was to try and basically go for the jugular. And when I say that, I mean go after the psychics and the mediums. But again, at the same time, it was edited to try and draw in the merely curious, and there are a lot of those people out there. So to have a little glimmer of magic there, it's like a red herring in a way. So, and I purposely did that, and I don't think of it as being manipulative. I think of it as like, I think a lot of people, not us skeptics in our community, they all believe a little bit.
And I think you're trying to serve birthday cake and a well-cooked
Absolutely.
steak at the same time.
Yes, I am.
And I think you're just going to end up pissing off the true believers who are like, ooh, this has a glimmer of hope. What the fuck? What do you mean there's no such thing as
It's
psychic?
heavily weighted.
And it's gonna
it's heavily weighted against magical things.
Yeah, I know.
Come on.
But I'm saying that
I have to say, I agree with you. It's heavily weighted against magical thinking, and it's peppered with, wait a minute,
Well, that's
Something's going on.
that's because in my experience through this journey that I took, and if you're a mentalist and you work on stage, and I know this is going to sound woo-ish, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Where's Susan?
She's on chat.
It doesn't matter because those days are basically over. But years ago, working as a mentalist on stage or working in the seance room for 14 years, there are moments when you're given pause to wonder, what the fuck, how did that happen?
You mean when you pull something out of the air and it connects in the most deep and significant way?
And in the character of being a medium, you're like, oh yes, of course, thank you.
Can
But then you
offer me
go back,
one
you go
example?
backstage and you go, holy shit, where did that come from?
Yeah, that happens to me and my girlfriend.
It's called coincidence.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
But can you give me an example? Let's be accurate.
Sure.
Let's be
One-
at least entertaining.
One night when I was in the seance room, the Magic Castle, we used to do two shows a night, and the midnight seance was usually a drunken spectacle.
Right.
And people had been drinking all night, and it was very difficult to come into the room and say, and now the dead. You had to measure your performance by the level of alcohol that was consumed in the room.
Right.
So, what I would do is I would go to the door right before I would go in, because I would walk in with a candle under my face, kind of, Peter Lorre, look in the doorway and go in, scary, spooky, that sort of thing. So I'd go to the door and I'd listen. So this night I put my ear to the door and it was total chaos. There was glasses breaking, people hysterical, women screaming. I mean, it was like, now I'm going to go in there and I'm going to bring the whole party down. So I said, no, tonight I'm going to go over the top. I'm going to do the most outrageous, surrealistic performance. I'm going to do all the things I've always wanted to do without any regard for decorum or any of the Magic Castle rules or any of their scripts or anything. I'm just going to do a performance piece. I'm going to swim on the seance table. I'm going to glossandia. I'm going to spit. I'm going to scream. And so that's what I did. But what happened is during the dark seance, I started to do glossandia, which means you just I see that. You don't even try to make sense out of what you're saying. So I gave it my all, and I said, I see the color blue, and I see something passing by really fast in front of me. A lot of glass, a lot of metal. Oh, and it's making a noise, and oh, I see the number 49, and now it's gone, and now it's gone, and then I kept going. End of the seance, lights come up. Everybody was, and one of the things I learned is in my seances at the end, if they applauded, then I didn't do a good job. I just wanted the lights to come up, and I would be laying across the table like I was passed out. So they all start to leave, and I get up and I push my hair back and loosen my tie, and there's this couple at the door, and they turn towards me, and they're really puzzled looking. And I said, "What's wrong? Did you lose something?" And they said, and she says to her boyfriend, "Go ahead, tell him. You got to tell him. You got to tell him." I said, "What is this going to be?" So he comes over and he says, "Well, tonight is the anniversary of my father's death, and we didn't tell anybody in the room. And when we were first married, he used to have a '49 blue Chevrolet that he used to drive by the front of the house really fast and honk the horn." So, I mean, coincidence, yes. So, but in the character, again, when you're paid to be the medium, you can't go, "Wow, that's amazing." You just have to nod and go, "Yes, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that." But then I go back in the backstage and I'm like, so moments like that happen. I'm not saying there's anything to it, but these are the things that I want people to know about, because people in the real world who go to Hudson's Books to get a book to read on the airplane, they have no idea that a mentalist can experience that kind of thing.
And I
They
think
think
that
it's
it's a
all a
worthy
show.
goal.
They think it's all a show.
I think it's a worthy goal to let people know that, hey, I got some moments too, like that have to my heart and mind.
And believe me,
I could be suckered as well.
in 10 or 15 minutes, 10 or 15 years of doing this sort of work, there are some woo moments. And to leave them out would be unrealistic.
No, I agree
So
wholeheartedly.
that's another reason I put them in, is because they're peppered They're peppered because I don't believe like you guys do. I don't think that it's absolute. I don't believe absolute anything. I'm a performer. I want to draw this kind of craziness out of people. That's my goal. And that's one of the reasons, once that stops, once those moments stop where people come up to me afterwards and talk to me about things like that, then I'm done. Because there's no more interest in it for me. So you can call it coincidence, and that's why I'm a skeptic. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what really interests me.
Well, what do you think
I wanted
is,
to include that in the book.
What do you think it is?
What do I think what is?
So that moment you just described, that thing we're referring to as a woo moment. What do you
I
think
have no
might have
idea what it was. I mean, my skeptical side says just a coincidence. A
me.
series of coincidences that was connected by confirmation bias by the sitters in the room.
Right.
And although there are only
And you
12,
think those of us who go, it's clearly that,
clearly.
and then leave it at that.
Yeah.
You think we're missing something? I'm accused of missing things.
No, because I didn't write the book for you.
Oh.
I wrote the book for the lady who's
Forget about the book. I want to ask. I'm trying to
we're
talk to
talking
you.
about the book.
No. I want to talk to you about this philosophically
Oh,
because
okay.
you're hinting at some things that I want to understand.
Okay, all right.
I really want to understand what you say. My
All right.
aunt used to say to me, she believed in tarot.
Right.
She believed in an afterlife. She
That
believed
explains
in a previous
everything.
life. No, it doesn't. She believes in a previous life. In
Yeah.
fact, her daughter and she both hate vegetables, abhor them, will make them vomit if they get certain vegetables.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she or her daughter or both of them have had dreams that they were homeless living out of trash cans and they connected those two together.
Mhm.
And they think that it was previous life stuff, right?
Right.
Aunt's dead now. Promised to make connection from the other side with both me and her daughter.
Mhm.
Connection never happened.
Right. There's still time.
Right?
Just kidding.
And but my point is,
Mhm.
I'm accused of letting my logical side deprive me of a magical aspect of life, which I don't think I have that problem. But when you say, you tell the story about
Right.
the blue and the
49.
it was really
Last.
amazing, and your eyebrow goes up. And then you explain to me that you're aware that there's a lot of confirmation bias involved there,
Right,
and all
right,
the skeptical
Right.
approach to that. Talk to me, talk to the listeners, talk to us about what it is you're hinting at. Give me an explanation of what you think might have been at work other than confirmation.
Well, I don't think anything was at work other than that in a skeptical way of looking at it. I don't think there was anything magical going on at the Magic Castle that night. Otherwise, our reality would be quite different. Those things would be happening all the time. But the question that you're asking me is, why did I pepper the book with those?
No, I'm not.
So-
I'm done talking about your book for at least a minute.
Okay,
and a half.
I didn't follow what you're
I
asking.
really,
Why
I
do
don't. I'm not holding you to anything in your book right this
all
minute.
right, because that's
I'm trying to have a real conversation with Mark Edward
Okay.
about that aspect.
Why do I think there's something more?
Yes. Explain to me what I'm missing.
Okay, all right.
Because as a
I got you,
skeptic,
I got you.
I know. I think I know.
I know.
And I'm opening
Okay.
up right now and asking you
I
to
got you.
explain something.
I'm on the right page now. All right, so you have to remember my background is in magic, not occult magic, in magic.
Stage magic.
Well, in prestidigitation,
Yeah.
legerdemain.
Yeah.
When you see something in the right hand, my mind is trained to look what the left hand is doing. So the magical thinking permeates the way I am. That's in my being. In other words, and I believe, and if I have to choose a belief, okay, and it may sound wooish, that this reality that we're talking about is the right hand. I am more interested in what the left hand is doing.
Okay.
And I guess my question
That's
is,
it.
what would you say is the best way to discover what the left hand is doing?
Listen to it.
I mean, I'm saying,
Pay attention to it.
I'm saying-
Write about it.
Is it the scientific method? Is it, getting
Well,
in touch with your inner feelings? Like what?
It's all of those things. I don't think you have to pick and choose one or the other. I think that a lot of what I did to be successful in the so-called psychic world was intuitive. It was there's common sense. Common sense is things that you know through trial and error and, learn from somebody's mistakes. And then there's intuition, which is knowing things you don't know how or why, you just go with it. So part of being successful in this woo world is that most people don't know. In other words, telling people things with, like I said, without any regard for whether they might want to hear it or not.
Right.
That's good and bad.
Yeah.
It's good because people aren't used to hearing people talk to them that way. But it's bad because people like Sylvia Brown are like, yeah, you're gonna die,
Yeah.
You're not gonna get well from your cancer, okay?
She's
So
evil.
yeah, exactly. She is evil personified. So the people who are really deluded, and I don't consider myself one of them at this point yet, are the people who are so convinced that they can actually tell people bad things. I never told people bad things.
Yeah.
Because
And that just makes you not a total asshole. That's where I draw the line.
But to go.
So there is a difference between the folks who are telling people bad things and folks that are telling people good things, in your opinion. The charlatans, there are good charlatans and bad charlatans?
No,
Before you answer that,
that's really that's stretching it out a little too
before
far.
you dive into that one, I have to tell you that this is the end of the free segment.
Oh,
The free segment?
That's right. Of
What
Skeptically
happens now?
Yours.
Now it's good.
No. We'll be back for another half hour right after this. I want to thank our guests, Mark Edward, John Rael, and Jen Brown. I also want to thank my co-host, Heather Henderson, and skepticallyyours.net. Tune in next week when our guest will be...
I have no idea.
That's absolutely right, Heather, and we'll be talking about...
What am I, psychic?
Of course not. That's it for the free version of episode 9. If you'd like to hear the full 90-minute show, please go to skepticallyyours.com/premium and subscribe. Our theme,
Our theme music courtesy of the sound editor of the Aristocrats, Eric Wilson, and special thanks to our Skeptic Tank moderator, Joseph Swam, and our digital publicist and web guru, Cameron Winter.
You've been listening to Skeptically Yours on skepticallyyours.net. I'm your host, Emery Emery,
And I'm Heather Henderson.
and we are Skeptically Yours.
Yours.
Skeptically Yours is a product of an ever-expanding universe.
Thanks, everybody.